Back to the Future, The Goonies, The Breakfast Club, Commando, Weird Science, Rocky IV, View to a Kill, Pale Rider, Rambo First Blood Part 2, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Clue. Hell, even Day of the Dead, released all in 1985. And that's just half of the movies that came out the same year that are loved and treasured by many. 1985 must be considered the year that movie theaters made a fortune. I mean, what better time to be alive? Unfortunately, I was 15 years late. Yet 33 years later, you still hear people identify zombies as brain-eating bastards when impersonating the undead mother humpers. Wait, you exclaim towards me. The only zombie movie you even mentioned was Day of the Dead, and they didn't even seek brains in that movie. Why, yes, you are right, you noisy sack of garbage. There is another movie that released the same year, a movie that is often forgotten about, though it is a cult classic zombie movie that is loved along the same lines as the beloved The Night of the Living Dead franchise. This movie is even based off of the creation of the first The Night of the Living Dead movie. Yes, it is. The Return of the Living Dead. The Return of the Living Dead is about two dudes, Freddy and Frank, in a medical supply warehouse who accidentally release a toxic gas into the air that brings the dead back to life. This gas was used in a military experiment. Pretty original. Before they release the toxic crap, Frank tells Freddy the story of how the Night of the Living Dead was based off of the experiment and a previous occasion in which the dead was brought back. And after the military quarantined the zombies in these huge drums, they started transporting the drums. But they got the mailing address wrong. And wound up being delivered right to a medical supply warehouse in Louisville, Kentucky, and the drums are just sitting in the basement of the warehouse. So, Frank being Frank, he decides to show Freddy the horrors that sit in the basement. He tells Freddy that military engineering is reliable, and proceeds to bang on the drum, causing it to break and release gas all over the damn place. After this, Freddy's totally 80s party freak friends show up trying to find him because he knows the perfect places to party, leading them to the cemetery right alongside the warehouse. Freddy and Frank call their boss Bert in an effort to get assistance in killing the now alive undead freak coming from the warehouse's freezer. Bert takes the undead to the mortuary, in which his friend Ernie is now tasked with burning the undead freak. So, he does! And this releases the gas into the outside air. Rainfall contaminated with the toxic gas falls upon the cemetery, and with the rain seeping into the dirt, it continues to seep into the cracks of coffins and bring the dead right back to life. And about half an hour into the runtime, the movie truly begins. It's Freddy and Frank versus sickness, Bert, Ernie, and Freddy's friends against the horde of some pretty intelligent zombies. These zombies can speak in sentences and have the power of thinking like normal human beings, but with the massive craving for brains. The movie explains as to why these once human rotten flesh heads seek brains, explaining it would just be a spoiler. It would be. The actual movie is not as bad as expected. It surprisingly holds up as being entertaining throughout the entire hour-and-a-half runtime. While being set in a small location, it somehow finds a way to change things up enough to keep it interesting for the viewer. While it may prove to be interesting though, the problem lies in the way many scenes are depicted. The horror comedy genre is a hard one to get right. And this movie unfortunately suffers due to the failure of portraying both on screen at once. At times the movie is really serious and seems as though it is trying to portray a horrifying scene, when at other times the characters just start saying some wacko trash or skeletons pop out of the ground with huge jaw-opening smiles while rock music plays. This kind of tone represents itself as another Evil Dead 2 kind of movie, though being released before Evil Dead 2 popularized the horror comedy genre. I would expect from the movie, and the soundtrack of The Return of the Living Dead, to see a group of party freaks running around blowing zombies' heads off in a kind of Zombieland style. It could be said that the movie suffers from identity issues. While the identity issues are the primary setback for the movie, it has little others. The soundtrack features 80s rock and a main theme that just sounds amazing. It sounds like it would belong in an alien movie from the early 60s, but more upbeat, and it is all the better for it. The characters all have extreme, stereotype kind of personalities that make each one likable even if for the wrong reasons. Such as the super weirdo Trash. What the hell is wrong with that chick? The practical effects for this low-budget 1985 horror movie looks really good, and the Tar Man stands the test of time because of how great and original the design for it was. Yet it looks stupid, and you will never forget that face as he says "Brains" for the first time in the movie. Once the movie reached its climax, I won't lie, I was plain confused as to what happened. The movie itself froze and I heard "wiener," some crap like that. After that point, I just questioned myself in laughter about what that even was. The movie has an actual plot that is concluded in such a predictable way, but that isn't what you would want to watch the movie for anyways. The movie does good by not referring to the plot at all while everything goes down, and is subtly brought back to in a way that transitions really well. All in all, it is well done with keeping the plot minimal. When it comes down to it, The Return of the Living Dead is a solid zombie attack that is way better than its overrated predecessor, The Night of the Living Dead. Sitting down and watching it originally felt like it was going to be a chore, but ended up feeling like something I could nod my head down as I say to myself, it wasn't bad. The Return of the Living Dead gets a 7 out of 10, but I will never bring myself to watch the numerous sequels unless there is one day where I absolutely hate myself enough to suffer through those. At least it don't sound as unappealing as the Hellraiser sequel, Deader. I'm just waiting for Deader to release.